Alright guys, today's a big day because all of the body work is done and today we paint. So it took quite a bit of work to get to this point. But hopefully it will all look good in the end once everything is sprayed and is one color. So since the primer is your last ditch effort to get all of the minor imperfections taken out, along with a lot of the heavier sandpaper scratches, it's good to put your sandpaper on a flat block instead of just taking some sandpaper on your hand and going in circles. I still treat the primer as I would treat the body filler that's underneath of it. This way you get the best and the flattest finish possible. Don't forget to sand in a crosshatch pattern because it is extremely important if you want to achieve that nice flat panel. And as usual, with a dark colored car or a car that has a heavy metallic content in the base coat, you don't want to use a coarse sandpaper. So I normally just start out with a 600 grit paper, and then as my sanding is just about done, I will refine those heavier 600 grit scratches with some 800 grit paper just to be on the safe side. And I usually use smaller, soft sanding block whenever I work smaller areas or areas with curves. Alright, everything is sanded down and ready to be painted. You know, this Rolls-Royce clear coat is so hard, it literally took me almost an entire day to sand most of this down just to get everything prepped and ready for paint. So the quarter panel, the sail panel, and the roof are all one panel, and there's no break in between, so I'm going to go ahead and finish my clear blend right in about this area. So what I did was I stopped right here with the 800 grit paper. I will continue sanding with a 1500. I'll overlap with a 2000 grit paper, and I'll finish off with a 3000 grit paper right about here, and that's where my clear coat blend will end. As I mentioned earlier, this is a redneck rebuild, so since this is my buddy's house, he doesn't have a whole lot of equipment, so we just basically have to work with what we got. Only half of this bumper is getting sprayed because the damage was on this side, and I'm just gonna go ahead and do my clear coat blend right in the middle of the bumper down here. This part is getting covered up with the grill, so that's not even getting painted. And we got the bumper and the fender. Yeah, we're just doing this right in front of his house, right on his porch, and the car is right there. So basically, to get a cleaner paint job than not, is we are going to wet all of this ground, so if there is any dirt or dust that's going to get blown around, it will get caught in the water, and hopefully most of it will stay out of the paint. I just basically want to show you guys that you don't need fancy equipment to end up with a good result. As long as you're following a set of simple rules, like keeping a clean area by wetting it down and just taking your time, not rushing it, you can do wonders in your driveway. I got some wax and grease remover in a can, so I'll just apply it all over the panel and get it all wiped off. I went ahead and saturated the ground all around the car, even on the other side, and half of the driveway. So this way, if anything tumbles into our paint area, hopefully it'll get cut in the water and will stay put. The very last step is you gotta run tech cloth over all of your panels. This way, if there's any dust or any small particles on the panel, it will pick them all up. So base coat is semi-transparent. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go all of the gray primer with some really dark or black sealer. This way, later on, as I follow up with my base coat, I'll have a really good coverage. I will not have any of the gray bleeding through the primer later on, because I may not see it now, but then later on, as the car dries and you put it out in the sun, you'll be able to see a lighter area. And this way, the sealer gonna prevent it from happening. And also, sealer makes a perfect bed for the base coat to go down on. And I normally put it down in a medium wet coat, usually just one coat on the quarter panels. And if I'm doing, like, let's say front bumper, I would do 2 coats. This way it'll prevent the rock chips and other stuff from occurring. For base coat, I like using my Technic Pro light gun. This gun is great for metallics and everything else. I will spray it right around 26 psi. I like to keep my base coats medium wet, meaning not too dry, not too wet. And especially if you're just a rookie car painter, don't try to put on too much paint all at once, because you will probably make it run, and that's never a good thing. With each pass of the base coat, I go about 3 to 4 inches past where I stopped with sealer. With your second coat of base, you want to go a couple of inches past where you ended your first coat, and so on. I will normally put down 2 to 3 coats of base coat. It all kind of depends on how translucent the base coat that I'm using is. So usually if I'm gonna start getting a really good coverage with the first coat, then I'll just go ahead and do a second coat after that and be done. And if after the first coat I still see quite a bit of substrate color bleeding through, then I'll do 3 coats, sometimes even 4. Alright, so it's time for clear. I'm going to turn the gun up to about 29 or 30 psi. That should do it. And once again, with the first coat of clear, I'm only going to go medium wet. At this point, for my clear blend, I want to stop spraying about 8 to 10 inches away from the masking paper.
My second and last coat of clear is gonna go down wetter than the first coat. If you are new to painting, this is something you have to pay attention to. Some clears out there are thicker and they are a little harder to run. Other clears are much thinner, so those would be much easier to make a run with. If you're not too comfortable, you can always lay your clear down on a drier side. This way you'll be able to cut and buff it later on. And also it wouldn't hurt for you to try and paint a test panel just to get a feel for your paint gun and the clear coat that you're using. There's about a 4-inch dry gap between the fresh clear and the masking paper. I'm going to lightly fill that gap with this blending clear in a can. This is the stuff that I'm using. I always inspect the panel right after I get done with a coat, whether it's a coat of sealer, base coat, or a clear coat. I always check for larger specks of dirt or bugs, because in this case my clear is still really fresh and I can fish the dirt or the bugs out, and right after I can fan just a little more material into that area just to even the surface out. These cars are cut and buffed from the factory. So in order for me to nail down that factory finished look, I am gonna have to get this car cut and buffed. I figured I would do that in this video, but there is a good bit of information there that I believe deserves its own video, so I'll have that video out in just a few days. So if you guys want to see this project through to the end, go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already, click that bell notification button, and also don't forget to like because that helps this channel grow, and I'll be seeing you here in just a few days in the next video.